The Alpha King didn't want a queen. He wanted an incubator. When King Kalen pulled me from the filth of the dungeons, he offered me a ruthless bargain. 1 year in his bed, 1 heir for his throne. And then, my freedom. He thought he was buying a helpless rogue to break his blood curse. He had no idea he was inviting the last assassin of the Obsidian Pack into his bedroom. He looked at my stomach and saw his legacy. I looked at his exposed throat and saw my revenge. Kalen wanted an heir? Fine, I would give him one. But first, I was going to give him a war. Welcome back to Leah's Romance Collection, where tonight we hunt deeper than desire, into territories where love and vengeance wear the same face. Before this story begins, tell me, where are you watching from? And what time is it? Have you ever wanted something so badly you were willing to become a monster to get it? Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, like, and share. Now, let's begin. Prologue. 3 days earlier, the dungeon stones were ice against my spine. Blood from the silver chains pooled beneath my wrists, black and thick in the dim torchlight. I'd been hanging here for 3 days, long enough for the scent of my own fear to fade, long enough for my wolf to retreat so deep I could barely feel her pulse in the back of my mind, long enough to perfect the performance. The guards had stopped checking on me after the first night. Good. That meant they believed the act. Broken rogue. Captured while stealing from the royal hunting grounds. Too weak to be a threat. They saw the rags, the blood, the trembling. They didn't see the stolen hairpin tucked against my inner thigh, sharpened to a lethal point. They didn't see the way I'd memorized their patrol patterns, the way I'd tested the cell door's hinges, the way I'd noted which guards were chatty and which were cruel. They didn't see me memorizing the castle's bones through sound alone, the echo of boots above me that meant the throne room was directly overhead, the rush of water that meant the river ran beneath the eastern wing, the howls that meant the Alpha King kept his personal guard close. I was hunting, even in chains. When footsteps finally echoed down the corridor, heavier than guards, deliberate, purposeful, I made sure to slump forward, made sure my hair fell across my face, made sure my breathing was shallow enough to suggest surrender. The torchlight grew brighter. I didn't look up. Not yet. Let him see what he expected first. Chapter 1. The Alpha King of Valoria was a weapon in the shape of a man. That was my first thought when King Kalen stopped outside my cell, his massive frame blocking the torchlight and turning the corridor into a tunnel of shadow. He didn't look at me, not yet. He was reading something the dungeon master held, his jaw tight, those infamous gold eyes scanning whatever report detailed my supposed crimes. Trespassing. That's what they'd charged me with when I'd let them catch me. Trespassing on royal hunting grounds. Stealing from the king's deer. They had no idea what I'd really been hunting. This one. His voice was gravel and smoke, the kind of sound that vibrated in your chest and made lesser wolves drop to their knees in submission. I kept my chin tucked, my shoulders rounded. Let him think it was defeat, not discipline. Yes, your majesty. The dungeon master's voice trembled. Her blood. The healers tested it while she was unconscious. Ancient blood, they said. Pure strain. Possibly the last of her kind. Ancient blood. The lie I'd paid a blood witch 3 silver coins and a lock of my mother's hair to weave into my scent. The lie that would get me exactly where I needed to be, close enough to the king to finish what my pack had started 7 years ago. Kalen's eyes finally found mine. I'd heard stories about those eyes. How they'd watched his enemies burn alive in their own halls. How they'd sentenced hundreds to death without a flicker of mercy. How they'd turned cold as winter the day his pregnant wife died, taking his only heir with her into the dark. Looking into them now, I understood. There was nothing in those gold depths. No warmth, no curiosity, no humanity left. Just calculation. He was measuring me like livestock at auction. Stand, he commanded. The silver chains made it agony to move. Silver didn't kill werewolves, that was human superstition, but it burned like acid against skin, suppressed the wolf, turned every movement into grinding pain. I'd been wearing them for 3 days. I rose anyway, because a broken rogue would be desperate to obey, desperate to please, desperate to survive. I swayed on my feet, not entirely performance. I hadn't eaten since they dragged me down here. His nostrils flared. He could smell my weakness. My hunger. The copper tang of blood from where the silver had bitten deep. Perfect. You understand what ancient blood means, he said. Not a question. A test. That I'm rare. My voice came out raspy, raw from screaming the first night when they'd locked the chains. I hadn't needed to scream, but the guards expected it. So I'd given them the show. That I'm valuable. That you're useful. He stepped closer to the bars, and Mother Moon, he was enormous. 7 feet of scarred muscle and barely leashed violence, shoulders broad enough to block out the world. This close, I could see the silver threaded through his dark hair. The claw marks across his throat that suggested he'd survived challenges that should have killed him. This was the man who'd burned my childhood home to ash. This was the man who'd killed my father in single combat while I watched from the trees. This was the man who'd laughed when my mother begged for mercy for her children. I looked at him and felt nothing but purpose. I need an heir, he said flatly. My bloodline is cursed. 3 wives, dead. 4 pregnancies, lost. My healers tell me only ancient blood can break the curse and carry a child of my line to term. I let my eyes widen. Let my pulse jump in my throat where he could see it flutter. You're offering me a bargain. I made my voice small, uncertain. I'm offering you survival. His hand wrapped around one of the iron bars between us, and I watched his knuckles go white with pressure. The metal groaned under his grip, bending slightly. A casual display of the strength that made him apex predator in a kingdom of wolves. 1 year in my bed, 1 child. If you survive the birth, you walk away with enough gold to disappear anywhere in the 5 kingdoms. New name, new life, new pack if you want one. He leaned closer, and I could smell him now, pine and cold iron and something wild underneath. Something that made my wolf stir despite herself, despite everything. And if I refuse? I whispered. His smile was a blade. Then you hang at dawn for theft. Your choice, rogue. The silence stretched between us, thick and weighted. He expected me to cry, to beg, to crumble under the impossible choice between becoming his breeding vessel or dying on the gallows. Instead, I lifted my chin. I met those cold gold eyes, and I spoke the words that would seal both our fates. I accept. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or relief. It was gone too fast to name, swallowed back behind that impenetrable mask of control. Good. He released the bar and turned to the dungeon master without another glance at me. Remove the silver. Have her bathed, fed, and dressed. Healer's examination within the hour. I want confirmation of her bloodline and her fertility. If she's damaged, I want to know now. And then, Your Majesty? Then bring her to my chambers. His voice was flat, emotionless, discussing the acquisition of a tool. I'll break the curse tonight. He walked away, his heavy footsteps fading up the stone stairs, back into the light and warmth of the castle proper. The dungeon master fumbled with his keys, hands shaking as he unlocked my cell. You're lucky, he muttered, not meeting my eyes. The king could have just taken you, left you down here after, but he's giving you a chance at freedom, at wealth. How generous, I murmured. He didn't hear the poison in my tone. The silver chains fell away, and my wolf surged up like a drowning woman breaking the surface. The relief was almost painful, blood rushing back into my hands, my senses sharpening, the constant burning ache fading to a memory. 2 guards hauled me to my feet and half-dragged me toward the stairs. I let them think I needed the support. I let them think I was weak, compliant, defeated. But as we climbed toward the light, as I caught my first glimpse of the castle I'd sworn to infiltrate, I felt the smile pulling at my lips. Because Kaelin, the ruthless king, the butcher of the obsidian pack, the man who'd built his throne on the bones of my family, had just invited me into his bedroom. He'd looked at me and seen a desperate rogue with no choices left. He'd looked at me and seen a vessel for his cursed bloodline. He'd looked at me and seen his salvation. But I knew the truth. My name is Elowin, last daughter of Obsidian Alpha Theron. My father died with Kaelin's claws in his throat. My mother died with his castle burning around her. My brother died with an arrow in his back, running for help that never came. I am the final ember of a slaughtered pack. I am a blade dressed in skin. I am a promise wrapped in flesh. Kaelin wanted an heir? Fine. I would give him a son to love, a child to make him soft, a weakness I could exploit. I would learn his secrets, map his vulnerabilities, unravel his defenses. I would make him trust me, need me, maybe even love me. And then, when he was weak with joy over his newborn heir, when his kingdom was celebrating, when his guard was finally, fatally down, I would cut his throat and watch his empire burn. The Alpha King thought he'd bought himself a broodmare. He'd bought himself a war. and I never lose. Chapter 2. The healer's hands were cold and clinical as they pressed against my abdomen. Fertile, she announced to the scribe recording everything. No scarring. Hips adequate for bearing. Blood test confirms ancient lineage. She withdrew, not meeting my eyes. She'll do. She'll do. Like I was a horse being evaluated for breeding. I was bathed next. 3 servants scrubbed my skin raw, washing away 3 days of dungeon filth, blood, and carefully cultivated weakness. They oiled my hair, dressed me in a white shift that felt like a funeral shroud, and said nothing. Their silence was louder than any words could have been. They pitied me. Good. Let them think I needed pity. The walk to the king's chambers felt like a funeral procession. The castle was massive, all dark, stone and torches that cast more shadow than light. I memorized every turn, every guard post, every window that might serve as an escape route. Not for me. For later, when I'd need to disappear after the blade found its home in his throat. The guards outside his chamber doors didn't look at me as they pushed them open. I stepped inside. Kalen stood with his back to me, staring out a massive window that overlooked his kingdom. He'd removed his armor, just dark trousers and a loose shirt that did nothing to hide the predator's build underneath. In the firelight, I could see scars crossing his back, dozens of them, layered like a history of violence written in scar tissue. "Close the door," he said without turning. I did. The click of the lock was final as a death sentence. He turned then, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Not desire, not cruelty, resignation. "I won't pretend this is anything but what it is," he said quietly. "You're here because I need an heir. That's all." "I know," my voice steadier than I expected. "I won't hurt you." He moved toward the bed, each step deliberate, controlled. "But I won't pretend tenderness either. This is a transaction." Transaction. The word he'd used in the dungeon. He was trying to make it clinical, trying to make it bearable. I almost laughed. He thought he was the monster in this room. "Then let's complete the transaction," I said, moving to the bed before my courage could fail. The white shift came off. I lay back against dark silk sheets and stared at the ceiling. Started counting the stones in the vaulted arch above us. 1, 2, 3. His weight settled beside me, the mattress dipping. His scent pine and iron wrapped around me like chains. 4, 5, 6. His hand, rough and warm, touched my hip. Hesitant, almost gentle. "If you need me to stop," he started. "I won't." I kept counting, kept my eyes on the ceiling. I accepted the bargain. 7, 8, 9. There was no tenderness, no kisses, no pretense of romance, but there was no cruelty either. He was efficient, controlled. His hands positioned but didn't bruise. His body covered mine but didn't crush. When he entered me, I bit my lip hard enough to taste copper and kept counting. 13, 14, 15. I made my mind go somewhere else. Back to the forest where I'd trained with my brothers. Back to my mother's laugh. Back to the moment before everything burned. I was everywhere but here. Beneath him, my body was a vessel completing a transaction. But my mind was sharpening the blade I'd one day slide between his ribs. 23, 24, 25. He finished with a shudder and immediately withdrew, rolling away. The sudden absence of his heat made me shiver. "You're bleeding," he said, voice rough. I looked down. Not much. Just enough to prove what we'd both known I'd been untouched before this. "It doesn't matter," I said. "It does." He stood abruptly, pulling his trousers back on with sharp movements. Angry movements. But not at me. At himself. "There's a bathing room through there." He gestured without looking at me. "You can sleep in the adjoining chamber if you prefer. And if I don't prefer?" He finally looked at me, and something in those gold eyes made my carefully constructed armor crack just slightly. Shame. The ruthless Alpha King was ashamed. "Then stay," he said quietly. "It's your choice. Your choice." The irony burned. I'd had no choice but to accept his bargain. No choice but to let him use my body. No choice but to smile through captivity. But he was trying to give me this one small thing. The choice to leave his bed after. I almost hated him more for it. "I'll stay," I heard myself say. "The bargain requires proximity, doesn't it? For conception." His jaw tightened. "Yes, then I'll stay." I pulled the sheet over my body and turned my back to him, curling into myself. Behind me, I heard him move around the room. The clink of glass pouring a drink, the creak of a chair as he sat heavily, not coming back to bed. Good. In the darkness, I let my hand slide to my thigh where a bruise was already forming, not from him, but from me pressing the stolen hairpin against my own skin to keep it hidden during the healer's exam. Still there, still sharp, still patient. I fell asleep counting all the ways I'd make him bleed. Chapter 3. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of clinical encounters in the dark. 6 weeks of him avoiding my eyes at breakfast. 6 weeks of existing in the same castle like polite strangers bound by a biological contract. 6 weeks. And I still wasn't pregnant. The curse, the head healer said, studying her charts with a frown. It's stronger than we thought. Ancient blood helps, but breaking it completely requires time. Time I was using to map every inch of this castle. Time I was using to learn his patterns, his guards' rotations, his vulnerabilities. Time I was using to plant seeds of chaos in his court. The rogue speaks above her station. I overheard Duchess Marin hiss to her allies in the garden where I'd positioned myself to be overheard. I'd deliberately questioned one of the king's supply decisions at dinner the night before, not enough to be insubordinate, just enough to look cleverly observant. The king actually listened to her. Another courtier murmured, scandalized. Good. Create fractures. Make them resent me. Make them resent him for elevating me. A kingdom divided was easier to burn. I was in the library learning the names of his enemies, his allies, his trade routes when he found me 3 months in. You read, he said from the doorway. I didn't look up from the military history I'd selected with careful intent. Rogues aren't all illiterate. I didn't mean. He stopped. Tried again. I meant, you're educated. Formally. Careful. I'd slipped. My mother taught me, I said, which was true. Before she died. He moved into the room, and I felt that familiar tension coil in my spine, the prey animal awareness of a predator nearby. How did she die? The question was soft, almost gentle. I finally looked up, meeting those gold eyes that had witnessed so much death, that had ordered my mother's death specifically. Fire, I said truthfully. Her whole pack burned. Something flickered across his face. I'm sorry. The Alpha King was apologizing for slaughtering my family without even knowing it was my family. The irony was a blade between my ribs. It was war, I said. Exactly what he needed to hear. What he told himself to sleep at night. Packs fall. They do. He sat across from me, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone broken. Someone bitter. His hand rested on the table between us, close enough to touch. Someone who flinched when I entered a room. I forced myself to meet his gaze without flinching now. Would you prefer that? No. The word came fast. Honest. No, He stopped, seeming to struggle with something. I expected this to be easier if you hated me. Who says I don't? He smiled, and it transformed his face completely. Not the cold king. Just a man, tired and alone. You're terrible at hiding what you think. Every morning at breakfast you look at me like you're solving a puzzle, because I was. Solving how to kill him, how to make it hurt, but I couldn't say that. I'm trying to understand you, I said instead. Also true. Why? Because I'm carrying your child. The lie came easily. I wasn't pregnant yet, but I would be. Eventually. I'd like to know what kind of father he'll have. The transformation was instant. His whole body tensed, hope flashing across his face so raw it was almost painful to witness. The healer confirmed this morning. The lie solidified, took root. Early yet. But yes, he stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. For one terrifying second, I thought he'd seen through me. Then he laughed. Not the cold, controlled sound I'd heard in court. A real laugh, rough and disbelieving and full of something that looked dangerously like joy. I need to increase your guard, he said, already moving toward the door. Better quarters. The southern wing has more sun, it's warmer, better for... He stopped, turned back. Do you need anything? Are you comfortable? The healer said. Kalen. His name felt strange on my tongue. I'd never used it before. He froze. I'm fine, I said softly. We're fine. His eyes closed, and I watched his throat work as he swallowed hard. When he opened them again, They were bright with something I couldn't name. "Thank you," he whispered, "for the child, for surviving, for giving him hope." He didn't know I just lied to buy myself time. He didn't know the pregnancy was still weeks away. He didn't know that when I did carry his heir, it would become the perfect weapon, the thing he loved most, turned into his greatest vulnerability. But as he left the library, already shouting orders about better security in chambers and healers, I felt something crack in my chest, something that felt dangerously like guilt. I crushed it immediately. Guilt was weakness, and I was a weapon wrapped in skin. Nothing more. Chapter 4. The nightmare hit him 3 nights after my lie. I woke to his hands fisted in the sheets, his whole body rigid. A sound trapped in his throat that wasn't quite human. Not a howl. Something worse. Grief. Kaelin. I touched his shoulder carefully. His eyes snapped open, gold gone black, wolf too close to the surface. His hand shot out, wrapping around my throat before recognition flooded back. Fuck. He released me immediately, stumbling out of bed. Fuck. I'm sorry. I'm fine. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I could have killed you. His hands were shaking. The ruthless Alpha King was shaking. I could have killed our... He broke off, pressing his palms against his eyes. I should have stayed in bed. Let him suffer. This was weakness I could exploit. Instead, I found myself standing, crossing to him. What do you dream about? You should go back to sleep. What do you dream about? He looked at me then, and the devastation in his eyes stole my breath. Her, Amara, my wife. His voice cracked. I dream about holding our son. He's perfect, breathing, alive. And then I looked down and He stopped. It's always the same. I'm holding death in my hands. The child who died with his mother. The heir he'd lost. The healers said it was the curse. He continued, words spilling out like he couldn't stop them. But I think it was punishment for what I've done, the packs I've destroyed, the wolves I've killed. His eyes found mine. I think I meant to die alone. This was it. The vulnerability I'd been waiting for. The throat, exposed. Instead of reaching for my hidden blade, I heard myself whisper, "You're not alone. I've given you every reason to hate me. I bought you, used you. I'm no better than..." Stop. I stepped closer, close enough to feel his heat. You offered me a choice when you didn't have to. You've never hurt me when you could have. You're trying. Trying isn't enough. It is to me. The words hung between us, dangerous and true. His hand lifted, hesitant, and touched my face so gently I almost flinched. "I don't deserve you," he breathed. "You don't know me." Then let me. This time, when he kissed me, it wasn't a transaction. It was a question. I answered it by pulling him down to me, tangling my fingers in his hair, letting myself feel instead of count stones. When he laid me back on the bed, his hands trembled. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against my throat. "Tell me this is too much. Don't stop." This time, there was no counting, no dissociation, no pretending to be anywhere else. This time, I was here. His mouth traced scars I'd earned in training. His hands learned my body like memorizing scripture. When he entered me, I gasped his name not as performance, but shock, because it felt like coming home. The mate bond snapped into place like a bone setting. I felt his wolf recognize mine. Felt the connection slam through both of us with devastating certainty. No. This wasn't supposed to happen. Mate bonds required true mates, and I'd verified I'd paid the blood witch to ensure. "You feel it," he gasped against my shoulder. "Tell me you feel it." I felt everything, his heartbeat matching mine, his pleasure echoing in my veins, his joy at the life he thought we'd created together. I felt the lie I'd told becoming truth, my body, surrendering to biology despite my mind's screaming protests. And worse, I felt myself falling, for the man I'd sworn to kill, for the monster who'd murdered my family, for the broken king who kissed me like I was salvation itself. "I feel it," I whispered, and hated myself for meaning it. Afterward, he held me like I was made of moonlight. His hand settled over my still flat stomach with such reverence I wanted to scream the truth. "I'll protect you," he promised against my hair. "Both of you. I swear it." I said nothing, because the real pregnancy would come from this moment of weakness, this surrender, and then I'd have everything I needed to destroy him. So why did my victory taste like ash? Chapter 5. Duke Silas arrived with winter. I was 4 months pregnant, visibly so now. The swell of my stomach undeniable when Kaelin's uncle swept into court with an entourage that reeked of ambition. My dear nephew. Silas purred at the welcome feast, his smile sharp as broken glass. How fortunate that you finally secured your line. And with such unexpected breeding stock. Kaelin's hand tightened on his goblet. Her name is Elowen. Of course. Silas's eyes slid to me, calculating. Though I wonder ancient blood is so rare. Tell me, girl, what pack did you say you came from? The trap was elegant. If I claimed a pack, he could verify. If I claimed to be a true rogue, he'd question the ancient blood. I didn't say, I replied smoothly, because the king didn't ask. He needed an heir. I provided the means. My lineage before that moment is irrelevant. Silas's smile widened. How? Pragmatic. But I saw it in his eyes. Suspicion. He knew something was wrong with me. Not yet, but enough to start digging. That night, I found a black feather on my windowsill. The signal, my old pack, what remained of them, were close. The assassination window was opening. They expected me to be ready. I burned the feather and said nothing. You're quiet, Kaelin said at breakfast the next morning. He'd barely slept, I knew. Silas's arrival had him on edge. Your uncle doesn't like me. My uncle doesn't like anyone who threatens his position as heir presumptive. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. He'll be gone in a week, the winter solstice ceremony, then back to his territory. And if he's not the only threat? His eyes sharpened. What do you mean? I should have stayed quiet. Should have let the danger come without warning. Instead, I see how your court looks at me. At us. Half of them think I'm a spy. The other half think I've bewitched you. I pulled my hand back. I'm making you weak in their eyes. You're making me human. His voice was fierce. There's a difference. Is there? When being human gets kings killed? He stood, moved around the table to kneel beside my chair, the Alpha King on his knees, his hand settling over our child. Let them try, he said quietly. Anyone who wants this crown will have to go through me first. And I've never lost a fight that mattered. The devotion in his eyes was a knife in my chest, because I knew what he didn't. The fight that mattered most was already lost. He'd let the enemy into his bed, given her his child, fallen in love with his own destruction, and the worst part? I'd fallen too. When he kissed me, I kissed him back and tried not to think about the black feather, about the allies waiting in the dark, about the choice I'd have to make when they came. My revenge, or my mate, my pack's ghosts, or my child's father, the war I'd started, or the peace I'd accidentally found. I love you, he whispered against my lips. I said nothing, because I knew that when the moment came, love wouldn't be enough to save either of us. Chapter 6. Duke Silas found me in the garden where I'd gone to think. Elowen of no pack, he said, settling on the bench beside me uninvited. Do you know what I find fascinating? I kept my hand on my swollen belly, protective. I'm sure you'll tell me. The Obsidian Pack was massacred 7 years ago. Every member accounted for. Except, he smiled. 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. The girl would be about your age now. My blood turned to ice. The interesting thing about ancient blood, he continued, is that it's not actually rare. It's just rare to survive, because most families with that gift were systematically hunted by this very kingdom, by my nephew. What do you want? The same thing you do, I suspect. His voice dropped to a whisper. To see Kaelin bleed. I finally looked at him. You're mad, am I? You think I don't recognize a weapon when I see one? His eyes gleamed. You've been playing him from the start. The helpless rogue, the grateful broodmare. All while planting seeds of discord in his court, learning his weaknesses, waiting for your moment. You're wrong. Then why is there an assassin's mark carved into the underside of your bed frame? He leaned closer. I checked. Old habit. And why do you wake at night and count the guards? Why do you map escape routes? Why do you test locks? Because I'd been trained since childhood to survive. Because I'd been a weapon before I was a woman. Because he was right. If you're going to expose me, I said quietly, do it. But my child is Kaelin's heir. Exactly what I need. His smile was poison. Here's my offer. When you kill him, I'll protect you and the child. Claim you were coerced, manipulated by foreign enemies. You'll live in comfort as the king's tragic widow while I rule as regent. And if I refuse, then I tell Kaelin tonight that you're obsidian, that you've been lying since the dungeon, that your ancient blood is the very bloodline he tried to exterminate. He stood. He'll kill you himself. Curse be damned. He walked away, leaving me alone with my child and my choices. That night, I found Kaelin in his study, staring at maps of his kingdom. I need to tell you something, I said. He looked up, and the love in his eyes made it so much worse. My name is Elwyn, I started, but I lied about not having a pack. His expression didn't change. Waiting. 7 years ago, your army burned the Obsidian territory. My father was Alpha Theron. You killed him. I watched his face drain of color. My mother died in the fires. My brothers died running. No. The word was barely sound. I was 13. I survived, and I spent 7 years planning how to make you pay. My hands were shaking. The dungeon, the bargain, all of it, I engineered it. I let you catch me. I used fake ancient blood to get close to you. Stop. I was going to kill you after the child was born, when you were soft and happy and vulnerable. Tears were streaming down my face now. I was going to cut your throat and burn this castle and finish what you started. Stop! He was on his feet, backing away from me like I was poison. But I fell in love with you, I sobbed. I fell in love with the man who murdered my family, and now I don't know how to survive it. The silence was devastating. Get out, he finally said, his voice dead. Kaelin. Get out! His eyes flashed gold. Wolf rising. Before I forget, you're carrying my child. I ran, and behind me, I heard him roar pain and rage and betrayal wrapped into one inhuman sound. I'd finally told him the truth, and it had destroyed us both. Chapter 7. The attack came at midnight, 2 days after my confession. I was locked in the southern tower, not a prisoner, Kaelin had said, but protected. From what? He wouldn't say. From whom? I knew. Himself. He hadn't spoken to me since that night. Hadn't looked at me. I'd broken him. The explosion rocked the castle, and I knew. My old allies had come. Smoke. Screaming. The clash of steel and snarl of wolves. Through my window, I saw them 20 obsidian survivors, hardened into weapons by 7 years of survival. They were fighting toward the throne room, toward Kaelin. And from the other side, Duke Silas's forces closed in, using the chaos to launch his coup. Kaelin was surrounded. He was going to die. And our child would be born to a dead father and a mother who'd orchestrated his murder. The choice crystallized with perfect, devastating clarity. I shifted, not into a common wolf. Into the form I'd hidden since childhood, the form that marked me as Alpha-born, the form that proved every word I'd said was true. The obsidian wolf, black as midnight, twice the size of any normal wolf, with eyes like molten silver. The guards at my door scrambled back as I tore through, my pregnant belly barely slowing me. I ran through smoke-filled corridors, following the sound of battle, following the mate bond that pulled like a fishhook in my chest. I found him in the throne room, blood streaming from a dozen wounds, surrounded by Silas's guards on one side, my assassin brothers on the other. Elwyn of Obsidian, one of my brothers snarled. Step aside. This is justice. No. My voice came out wrong, half human, half growl, amplified by the alpha power I'd never claimed. This is murder. He killed our father. I know. I moved to stand over Kaelin, who stared up at me with something between horror and awe. But he's my mate, the father of my child. And if you want him, you go through me first. You betray your blood? I betray nothing. My power rolled out, forcing every wolf in the room to their knees. Even the assassins, even Silas. I am Elwyn, daughter of Theron, last surviving alpha of Obsidian, and I claim this male as mine. The alpha command shattered the air. My brothers hesitated. In that moment, Kaelin moved. Together, we were devastating. His tactical precision, my alpha power, his strength, my speed. We tore through Silas's guards like they were paper. My brothers, seeing their chance for revenge slip away, retreated into the night. Only Silas remained, backing toward the door. You killed my pack, I snarled at him. Not Kaelin. You You poisoned his mind, manipulated the war, murdered my family to frame him. Prove it. Silas spat. I don't need to. Kalen's voice was cold as winter. Your men just tried to kill me during an assassination attempt you knew was coming. That's treason enough. Silas died quickly. I collapsed. The baby. The shift. The fight. Too much. Kalen caught me before I hit the stone, cradling my wolf form against his chest. Stay with me, he begged. Please, stay. Everything went black. Chapter 8. I woke to his hand wrapped around mine. Kalen sat in a chair pulled to my bedside, his head bowed, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. The baby? My voice came out hoarse. His head snapped up, and the relief in his eyes stole my breath. Strong. Healthy. Fighting like his mother. How long? 3 days. The healers said your body needed to recover from the shift. Pregnant wolves aren't supposed to. His voice cracked. You could have died. I couldn't let them kill you. You should have. He pulled his hand away, and the loss was physical. After everything I did to your family, Silas manipulated that war. You said it yourself, but I still led the army. I still gave the orders. His hands were shaking. I killed your father, Elowen. I burned your home. How can you look at me and not see a monster? Because I know you now. I struggled to sit up, and he immediately moved to help despite himself. You're not the man who destroyed my pack. You were a weapon Silas aimed, just like I was a weapon my survivors aimed at you. You had every right. To kill you? Maybe. I touched his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. But I had a better right. The right to choose who I love. And I choose you, Elowen. I lied about my name, about my past, about my intentions. Tears spilled over, but I never lied about loving you. That was real. That was always real. He broke then, pulling me into his arms and burying his face in my hair. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. I'm sorry, he choked out. For your father, your mother, your brothers, your pack. I'm so fucking sorry. I know. I held him while he shattered. I forgive you. I don't deserve. Neither of us deserves this, but we have it anyway. I pulled back just enough to kiss him. We have each other. We have our son. We have a chance to be better than our worst moments. When he kissed me back, it tasted like salt and second chances. Marry me, he whispered against my lips. Not as king and vessel, as mates, as equals. Yes, this time, when we came together, it was a vow, not of revenge or duty or desperation, but of choice, of forgiveness, of love that survived the worst both of us could do. His hands were reverent on my swollen belly, his lips gentle on scars we'd both earned. And when he moved inside me, it felt like sealing a promise written in starlight. We'd both been weapons. Now we were healing each other into something softer, something that looked dangerously like hope. Chapter 9. The labor started during our wedding ceremony. One moment I was repeating vows in front of the assembled court. The next, my water broke and I doubled over as pain ripped through me. No, Kalen breathed, and I heard 7 years of terror in that single word. No, it's too early. It's time, I gasped. The healers swarmed. I was carried to the birthing chamber while Kalen paced outside, forbidden from entering by tradition. I could feel his panic through the mate bond. Could feel his old nightmares rising. Another wife, another child, another death. The pain was worse than any battle wound. Hours blurred together screaming. Blood. The head healer's face growing more concerned. The baby's breech, she said grimly. And she's bleeding too much. Through the mate bond, I felt Kalen's wolf howl. Let me die if you have to, I gasped between contractions. But save him. No! The door slammed open. Kalen stood there, wild-eyed, defying every tradition. You don't get to leave me, either of you. He took my hand, and I felt his strength pour through the bond. Felt his wolf lending me power. Push, the healer commanded. I pushed, and screamed, and pushed again with every ounce of alpha power I had left. The baby came in a rush, tiny, purple, silent, too silent. No, I sobbed. No, no, no. Then a wail. Small, furious. Alive. A son. The healer breathed, wonder in her voice. She placed him on my chest, perfect and screaming and real. Kalen's sob was broken and beautiful. "We did it," he whispered, his hand covering our son's tiny back. "We broke it. Not the curse. The cycle. Of loss, of death, of violence repeating itself generation after generation. Our son would grow up knowing his parents chose love over revenge, chose forgiveness over hate. He would grow up in a kingdom rebuilding itself into something better." "What do we name him?" I asked. Kalen's eyes were bright with tears. "Theron. After your father." I looked at this man, this king who'd killed my pack and then given them back to me in the form of our child's name, and felt the last shard of ice around my heart finally melt. "Theron," I agreed. "Prince of Valoria, heir to both our bloodlines." Our son quieted at the sound of his name, his tiny fist wrapping around Kalen's finger. "Hello, little warrior," Kalen whispered. "You just survived the impossible. Just like your mother." Outside, the kingdom celebrated. Inside, we were just a family. Exhausted. Bloodied. Perfect. I'd come to this castle to give the king an heir and a war. Instead, I'd given us both peace. Chapter 10. 1 year later, I stood in the rebuilt Obsidian territory, our son on my hip. The land my father had ruled was green again. The survivors who'd scattered had returned, drawn home by the news that their alpha's daughter lived and ruled beside the man who'd once been their enemy. "Are you sure about this?" Kalen asked, his hand settling on the small of my back. "They deserve to come home." I looked at the foundations being laid for new houses, new lives. "We can't undo the past, but we can build a better future." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "My queen of second chances." "Our queen," I corrected, watching Theron grab for his father's hair with a delighted shriek. "This belongs to him now. Both kingdoms, both bloodlines, united." The coronation had been 3 months ago. Not just queen consort equal ruler. The court had objected at first, until I'd proved that an Obsidian Alpha could match any king in strategy, strength, and steel. Now they called us the Wolf King and the Obsidian Queen, the rulers who chose love over war. "Do you ever regret it?" Kalen asked quietly. "Not finishing what you started?" I thought about the girl in the dungeon who'd dreamed of revenge, who'd sharpened herself into a blade. That girl had wanted Kalen dead. This woman wanted him alive. "I gave you a war," I said, echoing words from a lifetime ago. "Just not the one I planned." "What kind of war?" I smiled, turning to kiss him properly while our son giggled between us. "The kind where we both won." The kingdom stretched before us, scarred but healing, broken but rebuilding. Like us, we'd both been weapons wrapped in skin. Now we were just people, trying to be better than our worst moments. Trying to raise a son who would never have to choose between love and loyalty. Trying to prove that even the darkest beginnings could become the brightest futures. The Alpha King hadn't wanted a queen. He'd wanted an incubator. He'd gotten a war, a mate, a son, and a second chance. And I'd gotten the same. Sometimes, the best revenge is living well. Sometimes, the greatest victory is learning to forgive. Sometimes, the truest love is the one you never saw coming. The one that burns your plans to ash and rebuilds you into something better. We'd both brought war to each other's doors. We'd built peace in its ruins, and that was the only ending worth having. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If this tale of love forged from ashes touched something in your heart, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Click on the next video. It's darker, deeper, and even more unforgettable. You don't want to miss it, because in this world, the moon may call the wolf, but love claims the soul. Do you believe some connections are fated, written in the stars, the moon, or something wilder? Share your thoughts in the comments.